My name is Clara Maddox, and my daughter just turned 3. I spent weeks planning her birthday party, stringing up pastel balloons, baking her favorite chocolate cupcakes, and waiting. My mother never came. Later that evening, Maya pulled at the hem of my dress, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why didn't Grandma come to my party?" I couldn't speak. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I knew what I was going to do next, and believe me, you're going to want to see it. Where in the world are you watching this from? I'd love to know. Drop your country or city in the comments. We're in this together. It was bitter cold for April in Minneapolis. The kind of gray chill that clung to your bones and made you feel small, like the whole sky had turned its back on you. I stood at my father's grave, the wind pulling at the edges of my coat, like it wanted to fold me into the earth with him. I hadn't cried at his funeral, not a single tear. I'd sat between my mother and my brother Bart, numb and dry-eyed, while the pastor spoke in that soothing cadence they all seemed to master. But now, 2 months later, my knees sank into the muddy grass, and it all came out, silent, heaving sobs that cracked something open inside me. I missed him. I missed him so much it hurt to breathe. He used to call me Pumpkin, even when I was 28 and trying to act like I had it all together. He was the only one who made me feel seen. And now, he was gone and I was invisible again. "Sorry I haven't been back sooner," I whispered. "It's been a lot." I stared at the headstone, the name Graham Maddox carved in clean, deep letters. My daughter had only met him once. She was just a baby gurgling in his arms, and he'd wept right there in the living room, holding her like she was the sun. I wanted her to remember him, but how could she when even I was struggling to hold on? My mother, Janine, hadn't come to visit the grave. Not once. "Too busy," she said, but she'd found time to host dinner parties with Bart and his new girlfriend, Sadie. She always found time for them. The last words she said to me before the funeral were, "Try not to make this about you, Clara." It echoed in my head now, cruel and hollow. A rustling sound pulled me from my thoughts. I turned, instinctively wiping my cheeks, embarrassed to be caught sobbing. A man, maybe early 30s, tall and lean, was standing a few rows down, holding a single white rose. He looked at me just for a second. His eyes weren't curious or judgmental. They were soft, like he understood. He stepped closer, hesitating, then knelt beside a nearby grave. I watched him place the rose gently on the stone, whisper something I couldn't hear, and close his eyes. Then he surprised me. He plucked a second rose from his coat pocket, stood, and walked toward me. I straightened, bracing myself. Maybe he thought I was someone else. He didn't say much, just offered the flower with a quiet, "For him or for you, whichever you need today." His voice was kind, not polished or poetic, just real. I took the rose, our fingers brushed, and for some reason I thought of my father. Not just the grave beneath me, but the warmth I used to feel sitting on his lap while he hummed old country songs. That peace, that safety. Maybe this stranger was just being polite, but in that moment it felt like a sign, a tiny nudge from the universe or from Dad himself that I wasn't as alone as I thought. "I'm Clara," I said, a little breathless. He gave a small smile. "Liam, visiting my uncle. He raised me." We didn't exchange numbers, didn't promise to meet again, but as he walked away, something inside me shifted. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like collapsing. I felt noticed, and maybe that's all I needed. I stayed a little longer at the grave, the white rose resting across the stone. The wind was still cruel, but I stood taller when I left. Because that day, in a cemetery where everything felt like an ending, something had quietly begun. I didn't expect to see Liam again. But a week later, I spotted him outside a lakeside cafe just off Nakamis Boulevard. He was sipping coffee, sketchbook open, scribbling something with intense focus. I almost walked past him, unsure if I wanted to interrupt whatever quiet moment he was having. But then he looked up and smiled. Not in a flirtatious way, more like someone genuinely glad to see you. And somehow, that felt even rarer. "Clara," he said like it was a pleasant surprise. "Join me." We fell into step like it was the most natural thing. I didn't even like coffee that much, but I ordered a chai latte just to have something warm to hold. The table we chose overlooked the lake, still partially frozen with slushy patches of snow lining the shore. Spring in Minnesota always felt like it arrived reluctantly. Our first few conversations were surface level, work, weather, memories of Minneapolis as kids. I told him I taught art at a local high school. He asked what I painted, and I stumbled, realizing I hadn't picked up a brush for anything personal in years. "I used to do portraits," I admitted. mostly from memory. People I loved. And now, he asked gently, now I mostly grade assignments and paint stick figures on the whiteboard to get a laugh out of my students. He chuckled. That counts. We laughed easily. He listened not just politely, but attentively, the kind of listening that made you feel worthy just by speaking. That first day turned into 2 hours, then into a weekly ritual. We began meeting every Saturday morning, always at the same cafe by the lake. The waitstaff started recognizing us. Sometimes we'd bring books to trade or doodle in each other's sketchbooks. He was good, better than me, honestly. His drawings had this unpolished emotion to them, raw and expressive, like he wasn't trying to impress anyone. I envied that. One foggy morning, I showed up feeling particularly heavy. My mother had called the night before, not to check on me or Maya, but to vent about Bart's work stress and how Sadie might get promoted over him. I listened for 10 full minutes before she even asked how I was. And when I mentioned Maya had just said her first full sentence, she brushed past it like I'd told her about a new shampoo I was trying. Liam noticed the second I sat down. "You okay?" he asked, handing me a warm mug. I didn't lie. I told him about my mom, about Bart, about how somehow in my own family I'd become the afterthought, the girl who was supposed to smile and carry things and never need too much. He didn't interrupt, didn't offer platitudes, just listened, his fingers curled around his mug, brow furrowed like he could feel every word. When I finished, he said softly, "You deserve better than that, Clara." It nearly undid me. I stared out at the fog rolling over the lake and whispered, "Sometimes I wonder if I imagined it, my dad loving me that much. Because the way my mom treats me now, it's like I don't even belong to them." "You didn't imagine it," he said firmly. "People don't always know how to love equally, but that doesn't make you unworthy of it." I swallowed hard, blinking back tears. "That's the thing, I don't want revenge, I don't want drama, I just want peace. I want my daughter to grow up never wondering if she's enough." He reached across the table and tapped my wrist lightly, like a punctuation mark. "That's a beautiful goal, and she will, because you already see her." I couldn't reply. My throat had closed up, full of things I hadn't realized I'd been holding in for years. We sat in silence for a while after that. Not awkward, just warm and full. Liam told me about his uncle who raised him, how his mom had struggled with addiction and left when he was 5. His uncle, a quiet mechanic with a big heart, had taken him in and taught him everything. How to cook eggs without burning them, how to fix a lawn mower, how to shake someone's hand and look them in the eye. He'd passed away the winter before, and Liam had been visiting his grave that day I met him. He believed in working hard, loving honestly, and never owing anyone, Liam said. "I try to live by that." I asked if he had siblings. He shook his head. "Just me and Uncle Pete." Somehow, that made his loyalty even deeper, like he understood what it meant to lose a small family and still carry its values forward. By the 4th cafe meeting, he brought me a tiny wooden frame. Inside was a hand-sketched portrait of a girl holding a toddler, both faces turned upward, eyes hopeful. "It's not you exactly," he said sheepishly, "but it kind of is." I blinked at it, stunned. "This is beautiful. I was thinking about what you said, about Maya, about being seen. That's what this is. You're the sunbeam and she's reaching for it." That was the moment I knew this was more than coffee and conversation. This was healing. This was someone showing up when no one else did. My mother still hadn't asked about Maya's first sentence. Bart was now too busy planning some ski trip with Sadie to return my texts. But Liam, he remembered my tea order. He noticed when I wore the earrings my dad gave me. He drew me with hope in my eyes, even when I'd forgotten what that looked like. Whatever this was becoming, it felt like the beginning of something sacred. Our wedding wasn't the one I'd dreamed of as a girl, but maybe that was a blessing. It was held in Liam's church, a small chapel tucked between a bakery and a used bookstore in South Minneapolis. There were no string quartets, no extravagant floral arrangements, no towering white cake, just folding chairs filled with the people who truly mattered, and a stained glass window that cast soft light on our joined hands. I wore a simple ivory dress I found on clearance, hemmed by my neighbor and friend Marla. Liam wore his uncle's suit, tailored just enough so it didn't swallow him whole. We didn't have a rehearsal dinner. We didn't need one. Every step felt easy, like we'd rehearsed for this without knowing it all our lives. When I walked down the aisle, Liam's eyes watered. Not in the performative, look at the groom way you see online, but in a way that felt raw, honest, like he couldn't believe this moment was real. and neither could I until I saw her face. My mother sat in the second pew, stiff in a pearl gray blazer, her lips pursed like she'd bitten into a lemon. She didn't look at me, not really. And when our eyes did meet, hers were unreadable. It stung. I had told myself it wouldn't. But on this day of all days, I wanted her to see me. The ceremony was short, sweet. Reverend Michaels spoke of loyalty and quiet courage and building a future not on expectations, but on choice. When Liam said, "I do," I felt the weight of it, like we were choosing each other against all odds. The reception was held in the church basement, with mismatched tablecloths and buffet trays of pasta brought in by Liam's cousins. The decorations were hand-cut paper garlands made by my students, each one with a note tucked inside. "Ms. Maddox, you're the best art teacher ever." It was humble, imperfect, completely ours, until my mother opened her mouth. It started with a glass of champagne and a raised eyebrow. She was standing with Bart and Sadie, barely concealing her disdain. "Clara," she called out, beckoning me over with a tight-lipped smile. "Can we talk for a moment?" I knew that tone. It wasn't a question. Liam was across the room, laughing with his cousins. I walked toward her anyway, heart thudding. "I was just telling Sadie," she began, loud enough for several guests to hear, "that it's so brave of you to marry into a family like this." Sadie giggled awkwardly. Bart looked away. I froze. "Excuse me." Janine tilted her head. "I mean, Liam's father didn't even try to look presentable. No job, no manners. Honestly, it's a miracle the man didn't embarrass himself more. But I suppose that's what you get with those kinds of people." The words landed like slaps. It wasn't just what she said, it was the casual cruelty. The effortless way she dismissed an entire person with one flick of her tongue. And worse, how familiar it felt. I'd heard that tone all my life. When she critiqued my clothes, my career, my parenting. And for once, I didn't retreat. I straightened, the warmth from the ceremony draining out of my chest. "His father is kind," I said evenly. "He treats people with dignity, something I wish I could say about everyone here." Janine blinked, caught off guard. "Maybe try enjoying the celebration instead of poisoning it," I added. "Or leave, that's an option too." A hush fell over the nearby tables. Bart muttered, "Geez, Clara," under his breath, but didn't defend her. Sadie busied herself with a canapé. I turned and walked away before I could cry. Liam saw my face and didn't ask. He just reached for my hand and held it tightly until the ache subsided. We danced to an old blues song that my dad used to play in the garage, one I hadn't heard since he passed. The moment felt like a benediction, like he was there, watching from somewhere, proud of me for standing tall. We left the reception early, our shoes dusted with snow, our cheeks flushed from more than the cold. Later that night, Liam whispered, "You're not invisible to me, Clara. You never will be." And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. The first time Liam came home with dirt under his nails and a smile that stretched all the way to his ears, I knew something was changing. It started small. A neighbor needed help replanting her garden. Then someone else asked if he could fix up their yard. Before long, Liam was waking up at 5 a.m., coffee in hand, sketching garden layouts on napkins and calculating mulch costs on the back of our grocery receipts. He called it quiet ground landscaping. I called it freedom. Within 2 years, the business took off. Word spread faster than we could keep up with. People loved that he was honest, punctual, and kind. I loved watching him build something from nothing, with the same care he showed our daughter when he taught her how to press flowers in a book or ride a scooter without falling. We bought a modest home on the east side, with peeling shutters and a backyard full of stubborn weeds. Liam promised to turn it into a mini Eden, and I didn't doubt him. We had everything I'd once believed was out of reach. Stability, laughter, a home filled with softness. Even in the midst of that joy, a strange idea lodged itself in my heart. Maybe, just maybe, I could offer an olive branch to my mother. It started with a single check. Nothing big. Just enough to cover her utilities 1 month, slipped into an envelope with a card that read, "No strings, just love." She didn't call to say thank you. But the next week, Bart texted me a casual, "Appreciate the help," with a smiley face. Liam raised an eyebrow when I showed him. "You sure this is a good idea?" he asked, drying a dinner plate. "They weren't exactly kind at the wedding." "I know," I said quietly, "but maybe if we lead with compassion, it'll soften something for Maya's sake." So we kept doing it. A check every month, no demands, no lectures, just support. I convinced myself it was the mature thing to do, the right thing, and at first it seemed to work. Janine started calling again, nothing deep. Just weather updates, recipes I didn't ask for, the occasional passive-aggressive comment disguised as advice. But her voice was warmer, polite. Sometimes she even asked about Maya, though never in much detail. In public, she began to act proud, told her friends we had done well for ourselves, spoke glowingly of Liam's business as if she'd believed in him all along. I knew it was performative, but after years of cold shoulders and invisible walls, I took what I could get. She even started bringing Bart around more often. He'd stop by, pretend to notice Maya's drawings on the fridge, toss out compliments about our cute little setup. He was still the golden child in her eyes, still wore his entitlement like cologne, but at least he smiled more. At least they weren't throwing daggers. There were moments, brief, glimmering moments, when I thought maybe this is healing. Maybe we're becoming a family again, but something always felt off. Like Janine's smile was just a bit too tight. Like Bart's compliments were laced with resentment. Like the gratitude never quite reached their eyes. One Sunday afternoon, Janine joined us at the park. Maya was running in the grass, giggling as Liam helped her fly a bright yellow kite. Janine stood beside me, sunglasses hiding her expression. "You're lucky," she said flatly. "Not many women get a man who pulls his weight these days." It was meant as a compliment, but it stung like a warning. I didn't respond, just watched Maya shriek with joy as the kite soared higher. Janine added, "I suppose this whole landscaping thing turned out better than expected. Who knew dirt could buy a house?" I turned slowly toward her. "It's not dirt, Mom, it's work, and Liam earned every bit of this." She shrugged. "Of course, I just mean it's good that things finally balanced out for you. You always struggled with direction." That old familiar ache twisted in my chest. Implication that my happiness was borrowed, that I'd stumbled into it by accident. Still, I didn't fight her, not that day, because Maya came running over at that moment, her cheeks flushed, tiny fists full of dandelions. "For you, Grandma." Janine took them, barely glancing down. "Oh, how sweet." But I noticed she didn't kneel to hug her, didn't even smile. Later that night, Liam asked if we should keep sending the checks. "I don't know," I admitted. "I just want Maya to grow up in peace, even if I have to swallow some things." He looked at me long and hard, and then said, "Okay, but we draw the line if they ever make her feel small." I nodded, trying to ignore the lump forming in my throat, because somewhere deep down I already knew we were building a house on shaky ground, and sooner or later the cracks would show. When Maya was born, it felt like my world exhaled and started over. She was tiny, warm, and impossibly alert, with a little wrinkle between her brows like she was already suspicious of this world. Liam held her like a miracle, whispering promises over her like prayers. And me? I just kept crying. Happy tears, tired tears, grateful, aching, overwhelming tears. She had my nose and Liam's stubborn chin. And from the moment she wrapped her fist around my finger, I knew this child would never feel unseen. Not by me. We brought her home wrapped in a lavender blanket, her crib set up in our room, the soft lull of her breathing becoming the soundtrack of our lives. I took time off from teaching, learned to function on 2-hour stretches of sleep, and discovered a strength in myself I didn't know existed. Every coo, every stretch, every sleepy smile was a marvel, and all I wanted was to share her. I called Janine the day after we came home, left a voicemail, cheerful and hopeful. "He's here, Mom," I said, trying to keep the tremble out of my voice. "Your granddaughter's here. I'd love for you to meet her." 3 days passed before she replied. A text, just 4 words. "Send me a picture." I stared at the screen, numb. Not "when can I visit," not "how are you feeling," just a casual request like Maya was a vase I'd picked up on sale. Still, I sent the photo. A perfect close-up of Maya sleeping, her tiny hand curled against her cheek. The reply came half an hour later. "Cute. Looks like Liam." That was it, no emoji, no follow-up call, just that. I told myself she was busy, that maybe the reality of being a grandmother hadn't sunk in yet, that she'd come around, but she didn't. Weeks passed, I kept trying. I invited her to come hold Maya, offered to make lunch, keep it simple, no pressure. She declined every time. "Oh, Sadie wants to go shopping this weekend. I've got a hair appointment I can't miss. Bart's bringing over takeout and we're doing movie night." Always an excuse. Always a reason why someone else needed her more. The worst part? She never asked how Maya was doing. Never asked how I was sleeping or healing or feeling. It was like I'd disappeared again, only this time she erased Maya too. And somehow that hurt more. Liam saw the pain written all over me. He didn't push, didn't say, "I told you so." Just quietly picked up more late-night feedings, cooked dinner when I couldn't muster the energy, and left little notes around the house. "You're doing amazing. Maya is lucky to have you." So am I. One Saturday, I ran into Bart and Sadie at the co-op near our house. They were browsing wine, laughing like life had never touched them with anything real. Bart spotted me, smirked. "Still rocking the spit-up look, huh?" I blinked. "Just picking up diapers." He gestured at the cart. "Fancy yogurt. Must be nice having time to meal prep." Sadie gave a little laugh. "Your mom says Maya sleeps through the night already. Must be an easy baby." I swallowed. "She's amazing, and yes, she's sleeping better now." Bart raised an eyebrow. "Well, Mom's glad you finally found your thing. Being a stay-at-home isn't glamorous, but hey, it suits you." It wasn't what he said. It was the tone, that dismissive hum of superiority. Like everything I was doing, the feedings, the sacrifices, the love, was a consolation prize. I left the store without buying a thing. That night I sat in Maya's nursery, rocking her gently as she drifted off, the mobile above her spinning slow and soft. Her eyelashes fluttered. Her lips made tiny sucking motions in her sleep. And I whispered, "You are not invisible. You are wanted, always." It became a mantra, a quiet vow. I stopped calling Janine. If she wanted a relationship with Maya, she would have to show up. Physically, emotionally, genuinely. But she didn't. Instead, I heard updates through Bart. How Janine and Sadie had started doing spa weekends together. How they were planning a vacation to Sedona. How Sadie had been gifted a bracelet that used to belong to my grandmother. I hadn't even known Janine still had it. I told myself I didn't care. That Maya had enough love from Liam and me. That we were building a life that didn't require permission or applause. But some nights I'd catch myself staring at the front door, imagining what it would feel like if she walked in. If she scooped Maya up with tears in her eyes and whispered, "I'm sorry I didn't come sooner." It was a fantasy, a daydream, a flicker of hope I didn't dare feed. Because I'd learned something, cradling my daughter through the silence. You can't make someone show up for you, but you can show up for yourself. And for the little girl who looks to you for everything. I started planning Maya's 3rd birthday a month in advance. Liam thought I was going overboard. "She's 3, he teased, arms wrapped around me as I knelt on the kitchen floor, covered in glitter and balloon ribbons. "She'll be happy with cake and a pile of dirt." But I needed this party to matter. Maybe it was silly. Maybe it was my way of rewriting something in my own story. But I remembered every birthday of my childhood, and how each one chipped away at me. The rushed store-bought cake, the forgotten invitations, the distracted smiles from a mother already looking at her watch. This one was going to be different, bright, joyful, filled with color and sugar and people who made Maya feel like the center of the universe. We chose a backyard theme, sunflowers and butterflies. I found the perfect little yellow dress for her, and Liam built a makeshift arch for the cake table out of reclaimed wood and fairy lights. Every detail was drenched in love. I even mailed a physical invitation to Janine. Not a text, a real envelope, with a sunflower sticker on the seal and everything. I thought, maybe if she sees the effort, the care, the hope, I don't know, maybe it would stir something. I imagined her showing up with a small gift, maybe a reluctant smile, maybe even awe when she saw how Maya lit up the yard with her laugh. But days passed. No reply, no call, no RSVP. Still, I kept preparing. I baked 24 cupcakes the night before, vanilla with strawberry frosting, Maya's favorite. I hand-lettered little signs for the garden games, inflated every balloon myself until my fingers ached. Liam made Maya a cardboard butterfly crown and practiced singing "Happy Birthday" on his guitar. And then, the morning of, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Janine. I stared at it for a full minute before I opened it. And even then, I didn't believe what I was reading. "Sorry, Sadie's birthday is that day too. I'm hosting. You understand, right? No apology, no explanation. Just, you understand, right?" Like Maya was a scheduling error. Like her granddaughter's 3rd birthday was a minor inconvenience Janine had to regretfully decline. I didn't cry right away. I just stood in the kitchen, phone still in hand, while the frosting bags I'd been using began to melt under the warmth of my palm. Liam found me there 10 minutes later. I was still standing, still staring, still hoping it would change if I refreshed the screen. He didn't ask what happened. He just pulled me into his chest and whispered, "I've got you." That afternoon, the party went on. My best friend Mia came with her twin boys. Liam's cousins brought homemade lemonade and bubble wands. Our neighbor Marla made a paper banner that said Maya's magical day and strung it across the back fence. And Maya was radiant. She twirled in her yellow dress, smeared frosting all over her chin, declared that butterflies were actually fairies in disguise. She didn't know who hadn't shown up, but I did. Every time the doorbell didn't ring, a little piece of me folded in. And the cruelest part, I still kept looking. I kept imagining a last-minute arrival, a change of heart, a flash of remorse. But the sun began to set and the string lights flickered on and Janine never came. When it was all over, I sat alone in the yard, a cold cupcake in my hand, Maya napping on the couch inside. Liam came out and gently touched my shoulder. "She didn't even call," I whispered. He sat beside me, his jaw tight. "You deserve better." "She didn't even ask how it went," I added, my voice breaking. "She didn't even pretend." Liam didn't say anything for a long time. And then, quietly, he asked, "Why do you still want her to care?" I didn't know how to answer. Maybe because it's my mother. Maybe because I still think love should win. Maybe because every time she lets me down, I think next time she won't. But there won't be a next time. Because somewhere between the balloon arch and the unopened invitation, I finally saw the truth. She wasn't forgetting me. She was choosing not to remember. The cupcakes were still sitting on the kitchen counter the next morning, untouched except for the half-dozen sticky wrappers Maya had proudly demolished. I stood at the sink, rinsing frosting bowls under lukewarm water, trying not to crumble like the leftover cake. My back ached. My chest ached. But mostly, it was the silence that hurt, the hollow, echoing kind that follows disappointment you pretended wouldn't happen. Maya padded into the kitchen in her butterfly pajamas, her hair sticking up in soft spirals, clutching a small balloon by the string like it was a prized possession. She blinked up at me, wide-eyed and hopeful. "Mommy," she said, "will Grandma come to my party later today?" The question hit harder than any slap. I turned off the water. Her voice was so casual, so pure. Like the idea of her grandmother not coming simply hadn't occurred to her. She still believed in people showing up. I crouched down, wet hands still dripping, and looked her in the eyes. But I couldn't answer. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because what do you say to a child who hasn't yet learned about quiet betrayals? I tried to smile, but my lips trembled. "Baby, your party was yesterday." Maya's little brows furrowed. "But she didn't come. Maybe she's just late." That did it. I broke. Right there on the kitchen floor, I pulled Maya into my arms and sobbed. Loud, raw sobs that frightened even me. Maya froze at first, confused, her tiny hands clutching my shoulders. Then softly she patted my back. "It's okay, Mommy," she whispered. "We can save her a cupcake." She thought I was sad because Janine missed the party. She didn't realize I was mourning the childhood I'd never had, and the one I feared she might be denied too. Liam found us like that. Me on the floor, tears soaking into my daughter's curls, her arms wrapped tightly around my neck. He didn't speak. He just knelt down beside us, pulled us both in, and let me cry. Later that afternoon, after Maya fell asleep with icing still on her cheek, Liam sat across from me at the dining table. The yellow balloon Maya had tied to her chair bobbed between us, half deflated. "She shouldn't have to ask that question," I whispered. "I know," he said quietly. "I thought I was doing the right thing, keeping peace. Letting Maya have a grandmother, even if it was only on paper." Reached across the table and took my hand. "You've done everything right, Clara, but maybe it's time to stop hoping she'll become someone else." My throat tightened. I wiped my face, the skin under my eyes raw. "I don't want Maya to think love is something you chase, that it has to be earned or bargained for." He nodded. "Then don't let her learn that from your example." The words landed hard, but they were true. I'd spent my whole life trying to be good enough, easy enough, useful enough. And where had it got me? Left on the outside of my own mother's love, watching her spoil Bart and Sadie while treating Maya like an afterthought. That night, after Maya was tucked into bed, still humming the birthday song to herself, I sat with my journal, the same one I used to write in when my dad was alive. I flipped to a blank page and wrote in slow, steady script, "The cycle ends with me. No more bending, no more begging, no more making excuses for someone who never even asked to be forgiven." Maya would grow up surrounded by people who showed up, who saw her, who held space for her in their hearts, not just their schedules. And as for me, I'd spent too long grieving a mother who was still alive. It was time to choose joy over longing, truth over hope, boundaries over silence, and a future where my daughter would never have to wonder if she was worth celebrating, because she was, every single day. We didn't plan it as some grand declaration. There wasn't a dramatic conversation or a slammed door or even a big announcement. Just a quiet Sunday morning, Liam scrolling through our shared bank account while I packed up Maya's art supplies. He set his phone down and looked at me across the room. "No more checks," he said simply. I didn't answer right away, because the truth was I'd already stopped sending them in my heart. I just hadn't found the courage to make it final. "Okay," I said. He nodded. "You sure?" I took a deep breath. "I'm done being the safety net for people who never caught me." So we stopped, no letter, no warning, just silence. At first, there was nothing. A whole week passed without a word, then 10 days. I began to think maybe they hadn't noticed. Maybe they assumed the next check was just late, or maybe, just maybe, they finally understood. But of course, that was wishful thinking. On the 12th day, my phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. 2 minutes later, it rang again, then a text. "Clara, I don't know what's going on. Did the check get lost? You know I count on that money. Please tell me this isn't some petty punishment." My fingers hovered over the screen. I didn't respond. That night, the messages multiplied. "I cannot believe you would do this to your own mother. After everything I sacrificed for you. You're just trying to make me beg. It's cruel, Clara. Are you jealous of your brother? Is that it?" Each one chipped away at something inside me. I wasn't surprised. I was hurt, but not surprised. Because even now, even when faced with the consequences of her choices, Janine made it about me. About my failure to accommodate her needs, my lack of gratitude, my supposed vendetta. It wasn't a cry for reconciliation. It was a weapon disguised as guilt. Liam offered to block her number, but I said no. I needed to see it, to feel the full weight of it just once without cushioning it with hope. 3 days later, Bart called. I didn't answer at first, but he didn't give up. Finally, I picked up. "Wow," he said by way of greeting. "You really think you're the righteous one, don't you?" I stayed quiet. He kept going. "Mom's been crying nonstop. She's humiliated. You cut her off without even a conversation, after everything she's done for you." I laughed bitterly. "Like what, Bart? Remind me." "Raised you. Paid for your school. She stopped speaking to me for a year when I chose art over pre-law." He ignored that. "You're being vindictive, jealous, bitter." The words didn't sting like they used to. "Bart," I said calmly, "you're almost 40. You live in a condo Mom pays for. You haven't worked in over a year." "That's none of your business," he snapped. "It became my business when we were paying your electric bill." A pause. Then, coldly, "You think this little landscaping empire makes you better than us?" "I think it makes me independent." He scoffed. "You'll regret this. Families don't abandon each other. Families also don't neglect their grandkids, or insult their sons-in-law at weddings, or take money from people they treat like trash." Another pause. Then a venomous, "Enjoy your perfect little life, Clara. Don't come crawling back when it falls apart." He hung up. I stared at the phone in my hand, heart pounding, but not with fear, with clarity. The bridge had burned. And for the first time, I wasn't the one holding the match. Liam wrapped his arms around me from behind, kissed the top of my head. "You okay?" I nodded. "Better than I've ever been." We sat in silence for a while, listening to the gentle hum of the baby monitor, Maya's breathing soft and steady. She was safe. We were safe. And the storm that raged outside our little house couldn't touch us anymore, because we had finally stopped opening the door to it. But even as peace settled over our home, I knew something was still coming. Because people like Janine don't just disappear when their control slips. They regroup. They find new angles. They come back. And when she did, it wouldn't be with an apology. It would be something else entirely. 3 months. That's how long it had been since the last call, the last guilt-laced message, the last time Janine tried to manipulate me into bending backward for a version of family that never really included me. 3 months of silence. And for once, silence didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like peace. Maya was thriving. She had started preschool, proudly wearing her tiny backpack and chattering about her teacher, Miss Rona, like she was a rock star. Every morning, she insisted on choosing her own outfit, usually involving sparkles, mismatched socks, and a unicorn headband. I didn't care. I loved it. I loved watching her become exactly who she was without shame, without fear, without second-guessing if she was too much or not enough. I had stopped wondering what Janine would have said. whether she would have called her bossy or too loud or told me I was spoiling her with attention. Because the silence had done more than remove conflict. It had removed her voice from my head. And in that quiet, something unexpected had begun to grow. Joy. There were lazy Sunday mornings with pancakes and music playing in the background. Backyard picnics where Maya and I drew pictures of the clouds while Liam pulled weeds nearby. Little family rituals that wrapped themselves around our days like warm blankets. Every once in a while, I'd wonder if Bart or Janine would reach out again. But they didn't. Then one afternoon, Marla from next door caught me on the porch while I was trimming the lavender bush. "Did you hear about Bart?" she asked casually, tugging at her gardening gloves. My stomach tightened. "What about him?" "Started working down at that warehouse off the highway. You know, the one with the big blue trucks." I blinked. "He got a job," she nodded. "Yep, word is he had to. Condo lease ended when your mom stopped paying. Guess the money train dried up." I didn't respond. Just nodded and went back to pruning, each snip of the shears sharper than it needed to be. Later that evening, Liam confirmed it. "Bart's working night shifts," he said, scrolling through his phone. "One of my clients saw him unloading pallets." "How's he handling it?" I asked. Liam gave a half smile. "He looked tired, but no one yelled at him, so maybe that's progress." As for Janine, the update came from an old mutual acquaintance, Mrs. Dorsey from the church choir I'd stopped attending years ago. "She's been real quiet lately," Mrs. Dorsey had said when we ran into each other at the market. "Hardly sees anyone. I think it's the loneliness. You know, when the noise fades and you're left with just yourself." Loneliness. I'd known that feeling. Intimately. But there was a difference between the loneliness you choose, because peace is worth the silence, and the kind that creeps in when everyone you took for granted finally walks away. I didn't take pleasure in Janine's solitude, but I also didn't rush to fix it, because for years I had been the fixer, the peacemaker, the bridge, the daughter who kept showing up even when the door never opened wide enough. Now I was simply the woman who stopped knocking. One night, as I was folding Maya's clothes, she came into the room holding an old photo from the bottom drawer, a picture of my dad holding me as a baby, his eyes crinkled with joy. "Is this Grandpa?" she asked. I nodded, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Yes, sweetheart, that's my daddy. He looks happy." He was, especially when he held me. She studied the photo for a moment, then handed it back with a decisive nod. "You smile like him." That night I cried again. But not from grief, from gratitude. Gratitude that even though the past had been unfair, my present didn't have to be. That my daughter would grow up with stories of a grandfather who adored his child. That she'd know what love looked like, even if she only saw it through the way Liam danced with her in the living room or how I tucked her in with the same lullaby every night. We were rewriting the story, one quiet evening at a time. And yet part of me still waited, not out of hope, but out of caution. Because history doesn't always stay buried. Sometimes it knocks again, and you have to decide if you're going to answer. It was a Thursday, rainy, unremarkable until the knock came. 3 soft raps, then silence. I was in the middle of sorting through Maya's finger paintings, trying to decide which ones to save and which ones to quietly recycle. She'd begun calling every scribble a masterpiece, and I didn't have the heart to argue. The knock came again. I assumed it was a delivery or maybe Marla needing help with her porch light again. But when I opened the door, it was Bart, holding a white bakery box, and standing like someone who wasn't sure if the porch would collapse under him. I blinked. "You lost." His smile was tired, faint. "Hi, Clara." I didn't move. "What are you doing here?" He held out the box. "Cookies for Maya. Chocolate chip, her favorite, right?" I stared at the box like it might explode. "You've never brought anything for Maya, not once." "I know," he said quietly. "That's part of why I'm here." Something in his voice disarmed me, not the usual smirk or condescension. No arrogance, no sarcasm, just something raw, worn down. I stepped aside. 5 minutes. He walked in like someone stepping into a house of worship. Like every photo on the wall was watching him. Maya was at daycare, thank God. I don't know how I would have explained him just showing up like that. Bart sat at the edge of the couch, still holding the cookie box like an offering. His eyes scanned the living room, the toys on the rug, the framed drawing Maya had made of me and Mommy and Daddy and Big Son. "I haven't seen your place in years," he said. 6, I corrected. "Not since the wedding." He nodded. "I deserve that." I crossed my arms. "So, why now?" He swallowed, looked down. "Because I messed up. and not just recently. I've been selfish, blind, maybe worse than that. You think, he let the jab pass. I talked to Mom last week. She's not doing well. She misses the checks, but more than that, she misses the control. She just won't admit it. I stayed silent. I asked her why she never made an effort with Maya, he continued. Why she didn't come to her birthday party. She said Sadie's party was more important. That Maya won't remember anyway. My jaw clenched. That's when it clicked, he said softly. She's always been that way, hasn't she? Cold when it matters, warm only when it benefits her. I didn't want to see it because I was the golden one. You were the shield, I said quietly. She praised you so she wouldn't have to love me. He looked up, eyes shiny. Clara, I'm sorry. I wanted to believe him, I really did. But years of being overlooked aren't undone with a box of cookies and watery eyes. You said things, I reminded him. After we cut her off, things you meant. I was angry, embarrassed. She told me lies too, said you were trying to ruin her, said Liam was manipulating you. I raised an eyebrow. I believed it, he admitted, because it was easier than looking at the truth that I let her neglect you, that I joined in sometimes. I didn't deny it. He took a breath. I'm not asking to be your best friend or to pretend the past didn't happen, but I want to start over, maybe with Maya if you'll let me. I studied him. He looked thinner, more tired, less smug. His hands trembled slightly when he set the cookie box on the coffee table. She's not a prop, I said. I know. She's not a shortcut to forgiveness. I know that too. And if she ever asks where you've been these last few birthdays, I won't lie. He nodded. Tell her the truth. Tell her Uncle Bart took too long to grow up. For the first time in years, I didn't see the brother who used to take my things or laugh when Mom scolded me. I saw a man who'd lost something and realized too late what it was. Okay, I said slowly, you can start with cookies. A breath of relief left his chest. But, I added, you show up, you stay consistent, one wrong move around her and I'm done. Fair, he said, standing. Thank you, Clara. He left quietly. Later that evening, Maya came home and spotted the bakery box on the table. Mommy, who brought cookies, I hesitated. Uncle Bart, I said finally. He wants to be part of your life, she grinned. Can he draw? I want him to help with my picture book. I smiled, blinking back something fragile. We'll see, sweetheart, we'll see. Because healing doesn't always come wrapped in bows or perfect timing. Sometimes it starts with a knock, a box of cookies, and the courage to say, I was wrong. It happened on a Wednesday. Maya's 4th birthday was just around the corner. We were stringing up paper lanterns in the backyard, her idea, inspired by some storybook about wishing lights. She wanted everyone to write down a hope and hang it from the trees. Liam and I loved the symbolism. It felt like a celebration not just of her life, but the peace we'd fought to build. I was standing on a chair, knotting fishing wire through the branches, when I heard the front gate creak open. I called out, expecting it to be Liam or maybe Bart. He'd started visiting twice a month, always bringing Maya a new sketchpad or silly poem. He was rebuilding trust, one small act at a time. And Maya, she had welcomed him with the full force of a child's hope. But it wasn't Liam. It wasn't Bart. It was Janine. And she was on her knees, literally, right there on the front walkway, sobbing, hands clasped like she was praying to something that had already left her behind. I didn't move at first, just stared at her, stunned. She looked thinner, smaller. Her hair grayer than I remembered, curled loosely like she hadn't touched a curling iron in months. No makeup, no pearls, no armor, just desperation. Clara, she choked out, please. My heart didn't pound, it didn't race. It stayed oddly calm. I climbed down from the chair slowly, walked to the front gate and stood on the other side of it, like a line had already been drawn. Why are you here? I asked. She looked up, mascara smudged, cheeks blotchy. I didn't know what I was doing. I was wrong about everything, about Liam, about you. I didn't know how to be a mother to you. You didn't try, I corrected. She bowed her head. I thought if I favored Bart, he'd stay close. I didn't know I was pushing you away. You did know, I said quietly. You just didn't care enough to stop. She wept harder. I miss Maya, she said through the tears. I want to see her. I want to know her. I don't expect you to forgive me, but please, I'm begging you. Something inside me shifted, not out of sympathy, but from the weight of everything I'd carried. For so long, I'd dreamed of this moment, her remorse, her acknowledgement. But now that it was here, it didn't feel triumphant. It felt tired, like a closing chapter. I opened the gate slowly, walked past her, and stood near the porch. If you want to be part of this family, I said steadily, you start by respecting all of us. That means Liam. That means Maya, that means showing up without games. She looked up, eyes red. I can do that. No more manipulation, no guilt trips, no disappearing when it's inconvenient. She nodded quickly. I promise. I paused. You don't get a title just because of biology. You earn it. Maya doesn't need a grandmother who floats in and out. She needs someone steady, kind, safe. I'll be that, she whispered. We'll see, I said, turning back toward the yard. You can come to the party, but only if you come as someone new, someone honest. She stayed on her knees for a second longer, then slowly stood, brushing dirt from her pants. I'll bring her sunflowers, she said. I remember they're her favorite. This time, she remembered. The party was simple. Sunlight filtered through the trees, setting the lanterns aglow. Bart helped Maya spell out hope on her card. Liam strummed his guitar softly in the background, and I watched it all from a lawn chair, a lemonade in hand and my heart a little lighter. Janine arrived quietly, holding a bouquet of sunflowers and a wrapped book. Maya's eyes lit up. Grandma! Janine looked at me unsure. I nodded once. She approached Maya slowly, knelt not in tears this time, but with grace, and handed her the flowers. These are for you, sweetheart. Happy birthday. Maya beamed. I'm 4 now, want to see my art wall. Janine glanced at me again, then took her hand. I'd love to. And I let them go, because boundaries don't always mean locking people out. Sometimes they're the gates we open carefully. Maya blew out her candles that evening, surrounded by laughter. There were no missed calls, no cold glances, no invisible daughters, just a girl in a yellow dress, a cake covered in tiny wishes, and a mother who finally knew love doesn't beg. It builds, brick by brick. And this family, I built it with my own 2 hands.